What is going on, guys? This is Sin, and yes, I know I'm very late on the OCG metagame breakdown number 0, because this was posted January 5th and now we're January 10th, but look, it's not my fault, okay? Even though it kind of is, I could have done it a few days ago. Anyways, before we proceed, friendly reminder to smash the like and subscribe button. It really motivates me a lot to keep breathing, because sometimes I just feel like I'm about to die, and yeah, maybe because of this upcoming format, I will die. But yeah, anyways, let's get right into it. So the first deck, the best deck, is still Fire King. Even though I kind of call it Fire King. Yeah, it's not really a Fire King deck, even though it is, but not really. It's a Snake Eye deck featuring Fire King cards. There we go. That's the best way to put it. Anyways, in second place, we have Branded. And at first, I was kind of confused. I didn't really understand, but I can actually give a lot of insight as to why Branded Despia is an extremely good deck. And then after that, we also have Ritual Beast. It's a shifter deck, so it's kind of like the Kashtira of the format. Voiceless Voice, so Silent Enforcer. This is the Ritual deck, and it is extremely good out of like the newer decks that aren't fire-based. This one I want to say is probably the best one. Anyways, after that, we've got Pure Snake Eye, which I actually find it funny that there's only 3 here, because in the Malaysia Blackluster Soldier tournament, the Pure Snake Eye deck was dominating, like literally everywhere, and Fire King wasn't even doing like all that well, at least compared to like Snake Eye. Whereas here, for some reason, not really. So I do find it, yeah, interesting and kind of unusual, but, you know, it is what it is. And also, Infernoid, for some reason, is nowhere to be found, but Ritual Beast is actually, like, above it, which I also think makes 0 sense, because Infernoid is, in fact, better than Ritual Beast. Ritual Beast, again, it's just that you have, like, the auto-win condition of the 2-of Dimension Shifter, because, yes, Shifter is semi-limited in the OCG, it's not, like, in the TCG. Anyways, after that, we've got this deck that doesn't exist. Dinosaur, okay, nobody plays that deck. Flunderies, Horus Naturia, that deck also is not a thing in the TCG. Infernoble Knight, that deck got super banned. And well, it's not even that bad, but like, Mekanko got banned on the other hand. That deck uses Isolde way more than Infernoble. Anyways, Infernoid, yeah, that's an extremely good deck, but it should be way up higher. And then Labyrinth, this deck is not really... I mean, it's a good deck for sure. I would definitely consider it in the top 10 best decks. My issue is that the matchup against the Fire King deck and even Despia is like horrible for Labyrinth. This deck has a lot of really bad matchups, so I'm not a big fan of Labyrinth, ironically, even though I guess you can turbo out Dimensional Barrier against Despia, so it's really not that bad when you factor in like an insane card like D-Barrier. Anyway, Salamangreat, very respectable deck. Rescue Ace, okay, yeah, that deck is still a thing. I can't believe that Rescue Ace is like tied with Sky Striker. Like, this is disrespectful. Sky Striker, my bad for all the fans out there. Look, I also like the deck, but the deck is garbage. It's absolute copium. Even with re-engage, it's just not what it used to be back in the days. The format is just so much faster. I was gonna say slower. Jeez, it's not even remotely close. So yeah, Sky Striker just doesn't really keep up with, like, you know, these decks, for example. Yeah, way better than Widow Anchor, Negate, and maybe Steal, if I'm lucky. Yeah, no. Anyways, Ligma, Horus, Dragon Link, yes, okay. Icebearer, this is another insane deck, but people are playing it wrong. It should be super high up there. Yo, Icebearer and Infernoid are both better than Ritual Beast, so, yo, people are capping, bruv. Anyways, Natura Runic again. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, that was Horus Naturia. Nemesis, Kirklaw, Runic, Super Heavy Samurai Draco Slayer, Supreme King Magician, and Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk. My bad, I forgot one little detail. This breakdown is not really that big. It's only 71 top-performing decks from 17 tournaments during the span of like a few days. In a lot of countries, though. So I guess there is that. Anyways, for Fire King now, let's get right into it. Okay, so people used to play Summon Limit with the Snake Eye engine because, you know, like you can you can turn down, like your turn off, Jesus, your own Summon Limit at any point, simply by sending it for the effect of your Snake Eyes to like evolve into the next one. But when you really think about it, Summon Limit doesn't really hurt Silent Enforcer or Despia. They can easily play through your Summon Limit, whereas on the other hand, Anti-Spell is actually quite good. Now, I will say that Silent Enforcer, even though it's a ritual deck and it does play some spells, it doesn't need those spells to win because it can still ritual summon using Saphira, the graveyard effect, and it can still place the Silent Enforcing Barrier using the Novox. So I wouldn't stay far away from Anti-Spell. It's still a really good card, and it's still really good against everyone, but I would at least keep that into consideration against the Silent Enforcer deck, so keep that in mind. Maybe sometimes Cosmic Cyclone might be better than Anti-Spell, because Cosmic Cyclone deals with the Silent Enforcing Barrier that you can place with the Novox, course, Anti-Spell, again, does absolutely nothing there. But Anti-Spell can be very good against your opponent's non-engine cards, such as Duster, Triple Tactic Talents, not Super Volley, obviously. Yeah, basically just normal spell cards. And it doesn't do anything against Evenly, but nobody's playing Evenly, right? But yeah, anyways, this deck is, again, another very minimalistic, bare-bones Fire King deck. Only one Ponyx, only one Sanctuary, and only one Island is what really shocks me here. But this player did choose to go with the Skyburn, because some builds, what they're doing is one Sanctuary and 2 Islands with no Skyburns. So at least the Ponyx has 3 search targets, even though you're not really searching Island. You're searching Sanctuary into Island, or you're searching Skyburn. Yeah, so I guess there's that. So it does make sense. The Arvata is there to give your Kirin infinite grind game ability, so that it's kind of like an infinite loop where Arvata revives back the Kirin, and then Kirin revives back the Arvata, and then, you know, so forth and so on, and then you also keep destroying cards in the process, so it's actually really good. Anyways, 1 Garunix, obviously not 2. There's no Barong, by the way, so the way that you're planning on recycling your Kirin for the opponent's turn is via Sunlight Wolf, so that's, you know, you're destroying it from the deck, and then you're reviving back the Ponyx. You can also make a Heat Soul, so it's a 1-card combo. I showcased it, but if you're still confused, just comment in the comment section and I'll try to help you out, or other people. But yeah, it's a 1-card combo that does all of that, that gets you all of your setup. And by the way, you're not really trying to draw Fire King cards in the, again, Fire King deck. It's rather a Snake Eyes deck that plays a Fire King engine, just for people who are still confused. And this deck, even though it is still a dual archetype deck, it's a hybrid deck, it can still play a lot of hand traps and non-engine cards, such as 2 Nibiru, 2 Droll, 3 Ash, 3 Maxi, and 3 Imperm. So that's, how many hand traps for? 10, 13, if I'm not garbage at maths. And then there's also the talents. 1 for 1 is actually very interesting. I guess it does make sense. It's a respectable card to play. My only issue is when you draw like 1 for 1 and a bunch of spells and traps, but like, I mean, who cares, right? Yeah, it's not really the end of the world. And then cross out with the 2 Cow by the Grave, that's also fine. The extra deck has nothing very interesting, but there is no Typhon. So that actually caught me off guard the first time. I was like, oh wow, okay, a lot of people in the OCG are just cutting Typhon. Like, even when we look here, Zeus but no Typhon, Zeus no Typhon, Zeus no Typhon. Okay, Typhon here, but no shit, this is the Runic Sun deck, can't really do anything else. Voiceless Voice, obviously that makes sense. And then this deck, no Typhon whatsoever, no Typhon. No Typhon, no Typhon. Yeah, so it's really interesting that even... Okay, yeah, there we go. But yeah, it's really interesting to see that a card that can be summoned on top of like any monster is still not necessarily a staple in everyone's extra deck. But yeah, here we can see the OTK package, so Raging Phoenix as well as a World Sea Dragon Zelantis. Although I will say that Amlo Whale is not really needed. You can definitely live without it. But anyways, for the side deck, we've got 3 Lancia for Ritual Beast, as well as Infernoid, and yeah, that's it. I mean, Infernoid, you have to keep it for like their follow-up play, not really their turn 1. Because ironically, they're not even trying to like necessarily summon Infernoid monsters using their summoning conditions, but rather just play with Decatron and the Snake Eyes. So that's also something that you should keep into consideration. Ghost Bell is only really good for Labyrinth, honestly. It's kind of shit for Despia because it negates the activation, so if your opponent has Branded Lost, then you're not necessarily going to be able to negate the Branded in Red or the Branded Banishment, which is really bad, actually. Same thing with Lubellion if your opponent has Lost, because you can't activate anything on like the summon window, so it's actually really shitty. But yeah, everything else, whatever, makes sense. For Despia now, this is where it gets really interesting. So this is a 60 card deck with a lot of hand traps, only 1 Branded Fusion. But with this version, with the Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, and Saronir, it's really easy to send the Branded Retribution and the Branded Fusion. So not only can you use Branded Fusion multiple times, you can easily access it. And also this build is still playing 3 Aluber. Branded Opening is at 1 as well. So it's crazy how this deck is nerfed to death, and it's still insane in the OCG, but again, it doesn't need to summon that much. So Maxi does not kill this deck whatsoever, and they still have... Oh, no, actually... Oh, yeah, Branded Expulsion, they still have it. Oh, wow, okay, so Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock is full power. Yeah, okay, so that's extremely stupid, and no fusion... Oh, no, yeah, sorry. There is the fusion deployment, but only 1 Cartesia, 1 Guiding Quem, and Shaddoll Beast for the Shaddoll fusion package in the side deck. This is insane in tandem with Nail Shaddoll Ariel. So the point is to summon El Shaddoll Apkilone, and then you negate something your opponent controls. Any face-up card can be a spell or trap card, so that's actually really cool, but it has to be face-up. And then you're sending Nail Shadal Ariel, and then you're trying to banish your opponent's Garunix, as well as the Promethean Princess, which you're basically going to be forcing out. And something else in the graveyard could be like, I don't know. I mean, one of the monsters that Flamberge would try to summon, because it has to summon exactly 2 level 1 fire monsters from the grave, not up to 2. So if your opponent only has 1 fire monster level 1 in the graveyard when this card dies, then he's not going to be getting anything, which is pretty good. And there's obviously other cards to banish with the Nail Shadal Ariel, so that's just an insane card. It's basically like a semi-soul release, but it's like an engine, and you're also sending Shadal Fusion, so you're drawing a card, you're getting your money back. If your opponent does not have Ash for the Shadal Fusion, you win the game. And the cool thing about this is that you have Shadal Fusion, and then you have Branded Fusion, so you have 2 cards that warrant an Ash from your opponent. Otherwise, you just really win the game on the spot, and that's really scary. Now again, though, this deck does lose to anti-spells, so I would be afraid of playing a deck like Despia, but it does make sense again because of how powerful it is. 12 hand traps in a Despia deck just shocks me, because to me, this is the kind of deck that outside of like Bestials, for example, it doesn't really play hand traps really well. But yeah, it's a really cool deck, very consistent, and very powerful as well. Going second, it's insane. But again, though, Labyrinth, you might lose because of Dimensional Barrier, and this because of Anti-Spell just generically. But I think the Fire King matchup for Despia is an absolute joke. It's actually really hard to lose if you know what you're doing. And also, I really like the inclusion of Phantasme because you can protect yourself from Infinite Impermanence on your Aluber, and you don't really have to draw into hand traps post game 1. Phantasme is actually kind of mediocre with hand traps. It's better with board breakers or with gas, because by the time you get to use Phantasme against Fire King or Snake Eyes decks, it's going to be too late. Your opponent would already have like everything. So it's not like you can draw into like a Maxi or an Ash or a Joel. It's not going to be doing much. But if you draw into Nibiru, then it's somewhat playable. But Nibiru is not really good against them. But they are not playing Barong. So ironically, Nibiru is not bad against Fire King. I might consider side decking Nibiru just for, again, the player and not for the deck. It's not the same thing, because they can easily play around Nibiru if they want to by destroying the Barong, so that even if you nib them, they still get the Ponix and Kirin Search / Recycle. So yeah, again, keep that in mind, which is the reason why Nibiru is a 3 here. Not necessarily because it's good, but because people are greedy as hell. Anyways, Ritual Beast is the next deck out here. Again, makes sense why it's good. It plays Shifter and it plays Dimensional Fissure. So if you've got like Effect Veiler or Joel and Logbird, you're not going to be able to use it. And if you have Max C, then you have to immediately use it right off the bat. And then they can just pass turn immediately doing nothing. This deck is relatively consistent. If you get to summon 2 monsters, 1 Ritual Beast or 1 Spiritual Beast, you always pretty much end on the same thing, which is Double Steeds as well as the Link 4, which is a quick effect banish. And I think there's something else that you can end on. Yeah. Oh, this build is not playing Ambush. Okay, wow, that's interesting. Alright, sure. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. This is a very minimalistic, clean version. I really like it, honestly. I don't know if I like Emergency Teleport, because if you have to waste your special summon of a spiritual... hold on a second. Yeah, spiritual or ritual. Yeah, Ritual Beast. Yeah, the spiritual are the actual animals. Yeah, the Ritual Beast on the first special summon, then you're not going to be able to like summon it from the banished with your ulti monsters. And that's kind of a waste, but yeah. Oh, and by the way, because of ulti Nochio Drago, you can easily play around your opponent's Veiler and Imperm. And Ash is not really good against this deck because... bro, you're trying to search like 10 billion times with ulti Kanahawk. Like, what's 1 Ash gonna change? Nothing. But this deck gets absolutely murdered by Nibiru and Evenly. The only way to play around Evenly would be by having an ulti Gaia Paleo that you hard make, not with Bond. Bond cheats it out. It's not gonna have the effect. And then you have to have Ritual Beast cards in your hand that you can banish. Which is fine, but I mean, it's a lot of commitment because summoning the ulti Gaia Paleo is... really hard to do. It's 1 ulti monster, 1 Ritual Beast, and 1 Spiritual Beast monsters that you're pretty much gonna have to banish. And this card gives you no recovery. It's not like the other ulti monsters where you can tag them out and then summon a monster or 2 monsters from the banished. So do keep that in mind, but it's still an absolute necessity. The side deck, I'm not gonna lie, it gives me Eye Cancer, 1 Nibiru, 1 Ogre, 1 Bell, 1 Ghost Sister and Spooky Dog Shit, and then 2 Droll. I guess the reason for that is because you draw them off of Maxi if your opponent's trying to kill you. Or like the random ass one of Crossout for the one of Hatchet. Bruh, no. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's just, I hate looking at one-ofs, honestly. It's always so disgusting. My favorite kind of side decks are like this, for example. This is gorgeous. The one of Nail Shaddoll Ariel that isn't random because you get to send it with Shaddoll Fusion. And then the one of Duster and the one of Heavy Storm that you get with the 3 of Thrust. This is a masterpiece side deck, and this is like, what the flying frick am I looking at? Like, for example, one of Thrust is stupid, like, don't do that. And then one of Imperm, like, bro, you might as well just not play the card. If you're trying to side like a third Imperm, just no. I'm just talking shit at this point. I'm always like that. I really had to do it. Anyways, Voiceless Voice. You already know I'm never gonna call it like that. Silent Enforcer. I really like this deck, but in here, Akira is pretty much talking about the exact same thing that I mentioned before. So there is a very big difference between placing a spell from your deck to the field or activating it. Ignis Heat, the True Draco Slayer. It tries to either search a True Draco spell card from your deck to your hand, or activate it from your deck to your field. Same thing with Metaverse. On the other hand, cards like Bestial Lubellion or Novox, the Silent Enforcing Disciple, you're not really trying to activate it, but rather place, so you're bypassing Anti-Spell completely. And as we have already established, Anti-Spell is extremely good next format. So is Summon Limit, of course, but, you know, Summon Limit is not good enough against the 2 decks that I mentioned, so Despia and Silent Enforcer. But yeah, no, this deck is really nice, really resilient, really consistent. Droll and Logbird would be like the one flaw of this deck, but you can still navigate your way around the Droll and Logbird and still end on a, I want to say, very decent end board if you know what you're doing. It's not necessarily going to be insane, but it's going to be much better than nothing. This deck really rewards you for being good, for doing your homework, and for understanding how to correctly sequence your cards, because if you're just a monkey, like every other average Yu-Gi-Oh player out there, and you just play cards because you like clicking on buttons, this deck is not going to be doing anything for you, like at all. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's a very difficult deck to play correctly, but a very easy deck to play incorrectly. And the side deck is whatever, I don't really care. In conclusion, Fire King still good, no shit. The second best deck is Despia, but it's already getting like completely annihilated by the first best deck. Like, look at that, man. 22 and then 7. So yeah, it's doing basically triple the performance. I think it used to be like different, the pie chart, but yeah, he adjusted it. So this is more representative anyways. Like, Fire King is a good deck. It's not a tier 0 deck though. So when people say that Fire King is going to be the next tier 0, stop the cap. I will say, however, fire decks in general are very good and potentially tier 0. But that would include like all the fire decks. And also I'm talking really just strictly TCG, not OCG, because they function differently. They do have Terminal World as well, which is a very good set. Again, especially because of Ice Bearer and Infernoid. So please stop being stupid and stop it with the 1 of and 2 of performance when it should be much better. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.